Hey guys, today we are talking about homesickness. Yay! Now, whether you are coming to the UK on a working visa, maybe you're coming here to join your British partner, or perhaps you are coming here for uni, it doesn't matter because guess what? Homesickness is just part of the experience. Honestly, I wish someone had told me when I first moved to the UK nearly 7 years ago that homesickness was just normal and it's just part of the experience and it's natural and everybody goes through it, because honestly the homesickness I felt when I first moved to the UK was unbelievable. And I honestly thought that I had made the wrong decision to move to the UK because I felt so terrible, so surely I must have made the wrong decision. But perhaps the most important part of this entire video is that homesickness is normal, it is natural, it is going to happen, and that's okay. You're not weird, you're not wrong, you haven't made the wrong decision, it's just going to happen. Now I have 8 tips and tricks to help lessen the effects of homesickness. You can't fully avoid it. It is just part of the experience, but I hope these tips can at least help improve your situation. Now, number one of the most important things you can do is to create a routine. We are creatures of habit, we are creatures of routine, and having even a basic routine can make a huge difference. Especially when you have moved to a foreign country, everything in your life is different, everything is overwhelming and just a bit strange and off, and maybe you're learning English as a second language. There's just a whole lot to handle at the beginning. So the first thing, and one of the most important things you can do, is to build some type of routine. When I first moved to the UK, I came here on a youth mobility scheme visa. So I did not have a job lined up. And for the first sort of month or two, when I was really just like trying to find my footing and trying to find a job, I built myself a routine, and honestly, it made the world of difference. So while I was still looking for a job, of course, when you get a job, your routine kind of builds itself naturally. But before I got there, I was just kind of like free floating around, and it honestly was horrible. So what I did was I would wake up at the same time every day. Even though technically I didn't have a job to go to or I didn't have anywhere to actually be, I still made sure to wake up at the same time every day. Then I would have breakfast, maybe watch a little bit of TV, maybe check my emails, like just have sort of like a morning ritual. Then I would have a shower and I would get dressed into real clothes. No PJs. I would actually get properly dressed. And I know that's really silly, but honestly, it makes a huge difference. Then I would spend the next few hours applying for jobs. I have a video on my channel if you're still looking for a job, but I had a really like systematic way of doing it. So at that point, you know, I'm up, I'm showered, I'm dressed. I'd spend a couple of hours looking for a job. Then once I was finished with that, I would go out, I'd go for a walk, I'd explore my new neighborhood, just like some exercise, but also like some fresh air. They're really simple things, but they really help. Then I would come home around that time, usually lunchtime, so I'd have something for lunch, maybe do some stuff on my laptop, sort of hang out, you know, like just sort of relax a little bit. And then usually I would like do any chores that I need to do or any like unpacking. I sort of unpacked over time, or like got my stuff sort of set up the way that I liked it, or if I needed to go get groceries, like any of that kind of chore stuff. And then it was typically dinner time, so I'd have dinner, I'd hang out on the couch, maybe watch a movie, and then I would go to bed at a similar time each day. And then I would repeat that process every day. And I know it seems kind of like pointless because I did eventually get a job and my routine naturally changed. But in that like first period, that first sort of, you just arrived in the UK and everything is weird, that is probably the most important time to have some type of routine. Even if it doesn't last that long, you need to have something. Another really helpful tip for dealing with homesickness is exercise. There is something about movement that it's just shocking how well it helps. Now, exercise, of course, looks different to everyone. Maybe you're one of those people that actually really enjoys running. You know, fair play. I am not one of those people, but maybe that's something that you really enjoy. Go out and run. Maybe you are not a runner like myself, so you go out for walks or hikes, Or maybe you really like swimming, so you join a local community center or a rec center and you go swimming. Whatever exercise looks like to you, just make sure to include it. I know for myself that my mental well-being and my anxiety in general gets so much worse when I skip exercise. So with that, it means as well, the homesickness is that much worse. I would say as well, when you're building your routine and you're also trying to look for some exercise, I really loved just exploring my neighborhood. I found that when you move someplace new and you don't know where anything is and you don't know how anything like connects or like how to get there or how the roads connect, like all of it is a mystery. And that in and of itself can be really stressful. So in my early routine, I scheduled in time to just go for walks. And I found not only is it good for my routine, I get fresh air, I'm also getting exercise, but I also felt so much more connected to my community because I actually knew where things were. So some days my walks would be like, okay, how do I get to the grocery store? Let's do that. Or how do I walk into town or to the high street or to the pub or a local restaurant or a local park? Like I would use that time to explore, to get exercise, to walk around. And in time, I started to figure out how it all connects. And again, I know that seems really silly, like saying that out loud, but it makes such a big difference. Number 3 on our list of tips to help deal with homesickness, of course, we have to talk about diet. Now, I am not a you must be on a diet kind of person, but what I simply mean is you just need to be aware of what you are eating. I know for me, when I get stressed or anxious or I am not in a good place, I tend to eat worse, which actually just makes the anxiety and mental health worse. So especially when you first move to the UK, homesickness is bad, maybe anxiety is bad, stress is bad, like everything's just a bit heightened. This is a perfect time to focus on making sure you are eating well. So balanced diet, whatever type, whether you're vegetarian or vegan or you don't really care, just make sure to have some type of balanced diet. Number 4 is quite simply, don't forget the things that you love. Learning about British culture and how to fit in or how to assimilate to British culture, of course, is very important, and it does ultimately make you feel part of the community and part of your local area. There is something to be said about still spending time and creating space for the things that you love. Now, whether these are particular hobbies or activities or maybe food from your home country, like don't just delete all those things or ignore all those things. That is still a part of you, and it does feel very grounding when you make time for that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a balancing act between assimilating to British culture, but also not forgetting who you are. Now, number 5 on our list of how to reduce homesickness, I would definitely recommend organizing time for back home. It's likely that when you move to the UK, your British time zone is going to be different to your home time zone. And sometimes it can be really hard to connect with family and friends back home. And when you can't connect or you try to connect and you know that the times just aren't quite right, that can be really stressful and that can actually make homesickness or isolation feel worse. So what I would recommend doing and what I did was right at the beginning, I scheduled in time to call my family. So I think at first it was sort of like every other day while I was still freaked out. You don't want to do it too much, but it was every other day, and then we sort of moved it to once a week, but we picked the time and the dates. So it wasn't like trying to play telephone tag, I message them, are you available for a FaceTime? And my mom, responds 6 hours later. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, we're out today. And then it's like, well, it's nighttime here anyway. And then the next day, there's none of that. Just schedule a time. And it is important to know that you don't want to call home too much, because it is hard to really throw yourself into the new life here in the UK, into new British culture and really assimilate if you are always looking backwards. But It's also important to keep those close ties with family and friends. That is part of who you are. You shouldn't ignore it or try to pretend it doesn't exist. Just keep an eye on how often you are calling home. But definitely schedule a time and a date for it. It makes it so much easier. Number 6, I would recommend find your own community. Now, this can look different for everybody, and it's really just finding what works for you. So this could be things like joining some type of club or a hobby or a sports team or a fitness class, or perhaps reaching out to other expats in your area. Whatever community looks like to you, try and find some place for you to fit in, because I do find that makes a huge difference when trying to feel connected to your new home. And of course, community could also be like in person versus online. It's certainly easier to find community online, although it's not necessarily ideal. It would be better to meet with people in real life. But don't overlook online communities as well, because they can be really helpful, especially at the beginning when homesickness is the worst. Number 7, we have feel it, don't bury it. Homesickness is, like I said, part of the experience, and there's really no getting around that. I think a first instinct for a lot of people is just to bury that emotion, bury that negative feeling, just pretend that it doesn't exist. But unfortunately, that just doesn't work. I think homesickness is actually quite similar to grief, if you've ever unfortunately had to experience that. If you bury it and you pretend that it doesn't exist, it really just like festers and it gets worse. So one thing I would recommend is feel it, don't bury it. Recognize that homesickness is normal and it is natural. It doesn't mean that you've made the wrong decision. Feel those feelings, sit with it for a second, and then move through it. Negative feelings like homesickness are not permanent and it will not last forever. So just, appreciate it and move past it. Another great way to reduce homesickness, or perhaps maybe accept homesickness, is to simply give yourself time and be patient. Homesickness happens, and if you are just like annoyed at yourself for feeling it, that really doesn't help the situation. Just know that it takes time. It is normal. It is natural. Be patient with yourself, and perhaps maybe be like extra kind to yourself. And maybe this looks like, doing more sort of self-care type stuff. Like some nights during the week, maybe you set aside time and you have like a really nice bubble bath, or you do like a face peel, or you paint your nails, or you light candles and read one of your favorite books. Like just be patient and kind with yourself. And I know that sounds really stupid and that sounds really cheesy and very like fluffy, but I found in my own experience, it helps. And I also think it's important to know that even though I have really built a life here in the UK, I've been here almost 7 years, I still have moments of homesickness. I still miss my family. I still miss elements of my life back home in Canada. I think it's important to understand that that is just part of reality. But the homesickness that I feel now is nowhere near the intensity that it once was. It's not as like crippling or overwhelming as it did feel at the very beginning. So just keep in mind, if you are struggling right now, that is just part of the process. Feel it, do some positive things and proactive things for yourself, and do know that it does get better. It won't last forever. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. If you are looking for more information on how to get settled here in the UK, why not check out this video where I talk about how to make friends as an expat. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.